Welcome to Fictional Problems, the podcast where we discuss all things writing, in association with Speculative Fiction Ireland. On today's episode, Episode 2, Part 3, we discuss the inspiration we get from tabletop role-playing games. We design character sheets for some of our characters. And we talk about how, if you're building a library, you need to consider the weight of the books. Join us.
And we're back once more. More Fictional Problems with me, Al McNevin.
And me, Gary Martin.
Hello again.
Hello. So we're looking at areas of inspiration for our writing. We kind of went over a few bits and pieces, things we like, things we hate, things that drive us on. But we were going to talk about the whole area of perhaps inspiration being drawn from tabletop role-playing games.
Yes, from TTRPGs. I have a sizable collection at this point. If you're ever on a Zoom call with me, you'll see a sizable library behind me.
All the games.
Nowhere near, but it's because I did a count and it was over 200 physical copies, and then there's a hard drive full of PDFs. Many of the PDFs I haven't read because there's simply too many, and there's some of my library which are still shrink wrapped that I'll get around to at some point. A good TTRPG, a well written TTRPG, it's just made to be inspirational.
Yeah.
And it's in that there is a different skill set to writing a TTRPG versus writing a novel or a screenplay or a different form of fiction, because you are writing one part textbook, one part. It's like you're writing prose and poetry at the same time.
Yeah.
That there is you want to present a world and make it encapsulating without the benefit. Often without the benefit of specific character.
The player being the character.
Well, not necessarily, because as in the players are the character in the story you will ultimately create.
Yeah.
But the story that is being told is essentially a history book. You say if you're talking about just the world setting, you're talking about a history book which has protagonists in it, has named people, but you wouldn't say that Stalin is your protagonist when you're reading a story about Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
It was a cast of thousands. So these books, they have to make them to be good, or being well written, they have to distinguish between characters in a sufficient way that they can be immediately picked up by the story runner, the GM, the storyteller, whoever, the referee, the judge, whatever name you want to put on it.
Yeah.
Some are done very, very well. I will say I'm a fan of White Wolf and the Onyx Path books that have come subsequently. They've got I'll soften it by saying they have a style that I appreciate. If I wanted to write a story about werewolves, for example, I will just pluck down one of the werewolf books. It doesn't have to be the main core book, it can be any of them.
Yeah.
Pluck it down and read through a portion of it. So this feeds back to our inspiration thing. I'm not being inspired to write something in Werewolf Forsaken or Werewolf the Apocalypse. I am being inspired by how they are depicting these groups.
Yeah. Okay.
And by talking about the groups, talking about how they interact, talking about they're boiling them down to a list of attributes in the literary sense, rather than and also in a systemized sense.
Give me a socio-economic kind of political kind of background.
Yes.
Jump off point.
Yeah, like say from Werewolf the Apocalypse, you have, if you just look at just say the city dwelling ones, which would be kind of the bone gnawers who are guttural hobos, and to the glasswalkers who are more fitted into society kind of thing. And then you can take the the city related ones that can kind of occasionally come into the cities. You can strip out every part of the lore that is presented to you, and you're still left with a very functional, very, very understood. And I think this is the reason why I want to push on this is that inspiration doesn't have to exist at the end of the story. That you are using this as as literally a what they call the structure around a building, scaffolding. You're putting up scaffolding, and then you're building the building, and then you're stripping the scaffolding away. You're still left with your own story.
Yeah.
That it doesn't. The author doesn't need to matter. It doesn't need to know that in the back of your head, this particular old mentor character to your mind was Yoda. It doesn't mean that. And indeed, talking again, to hark back what we were talking about before, the idea of failing to create your own Yoda creates
something else.
Yes, creates a new character, creates your version of Splinter. And you take Splinter, Yoda, and all these
throw them in there. Why not?
Sure, these pre-national mentor characters, put them together, screw them around, and you have something that is unique to you.
Yeah.
So it is the better it's written, it often doesn't have to necessarily fit into the genre you're looking for, but there are so many different books out there which fit into different genres.
Yeah, and to that point, I would have to just full disclosure. I wouldn't know too many different tabletop RPGs. I know a couple, and there's ones I've played, ones I like. Obviously, I kind of go for Dungeons and Dragons. That's kind of where I am. I kind of like playing Dungeons and Dragons. I've always liked playing Dungeons and Dragons. This goes back to like teenage years. And I kind of found that and went, I'm okay.
Sure.
I like Dungeons and Dragons. It's in the fantasy genre. That's where I'm at. That's the stories that I see in Dungeons and Dragons and the games I've played. I was like, yes, that helps, and I kind of draw on that a little bit as well. In fact, I would say that the Steve Jackson, Ian Livingston and Steve Jackson,
sure,
the fighting fantasy kind of choose your own adventure books.
Yeah,
they I was reading them from a young age, and there was a particular book that they put out called The Riddling Reaver.
Okay,
and what this was slightly different insofar as this was an adventure that a dungeon master could run for other players.
Cool.
So you had your Riddling Reaver copy, and you had other players with their pencils and dice and things like that, and it was like a little self-contained adventure. But I would have said I decided to take the Riddling Reaver and turn it into a Dungeons and Dragons game.
Mm-hmm.
So I was adding, obviously there was player characters and everyone, but I took that as an inspiration, and this entire Dungeons and Dragons campaign came out of it. And I would say that there were elements from that I drew on when I was actually writing my first book.
Cool.
Even this long down the line, it was a case of, there was certain elements. I mean, if you were to draw a comparison, it's like, there's a port town.
Right.
There is a port town. There is a lighthouse in both stories. That's probably about it. But that it definitely, I can see the progression there, from choose your own adventure book to run this adventure for your friends to Dungeons and Dragons to actually I could turn this into a novel.
Sure. Well, I would say that would be a good example of how there's just the gaming activity, whether it be the building it from a DM point of view or a player point of view, that the only people who are going to experience those stories are 5 people around the table.
Yeah.
And that shared experience, like I can talk about the Chain Nova event. And there is 3 other people in the world who know exactly what that was and how it happened and the impact that we experienced. There is, or the clone run, or there we go, the last vampire campaign I ran, or there's only a handful of people who truly understand that. And there's always a push to do full inspiration, or not do full inspiration, to copy out what happened in a gaming environment,
transcribe it.
Yeah, and it's just that never works. That you can take pieces, but
it's like, why is this character rolling dice in your book? I mean, I know.
No, but even that from a where you're doing from a lit RPG point of view, you'd have that as a thing. But I'm saying that the point of entertainment in an RPG or in a TTRPG is what's happening at the table.
Yeah. Are they like a test audience for your writing almost?
No, that's no, actually, that would be what I used to do is, if I had the more complex the plot line, the more likely it would fit into something I was running in a campaign rather than writing down. Because I think it goes back to what we were talking about, what our expectations for our audience was. I was at the time writing spec scripts, so I was not limiting the plots, but if it was complex, then in the moment at the table, I could reassess.
Yeah.
I could give more information as required.
Adapt and improvise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That if the audience, it's a group of people, reacted strongly to a info drop, and like, okay, and then they can run off and do their thing.
Yeah.
If they go, we have no thing to go there. It's like, okay, can encourage them in another way, or to give additional information.
10 guys with spears appear behind you and start poking you in the back to go that direction.
Yeah, but I wasn't hack. The wellness, right? How well a RPG is written really is it's not just. I mean, you can even from a system point of view that. Like I have to say that I have a deep uncomfortableness. I was about to say revulsion, but I don't. I'm uncomfortable with current D&D, the system wise.
Sure, there's issues there.
And it's just the idea of any system. So across the hundreds of books I have, there's dozens of systems there, and they're all trying to translate the world, fantastical, science fiction, normal, whatever you have, into a systemized form. And when you're dealing with, say, putting a magic system together or a super science system together, then you want it to be believable, and you want it to be, when you're actually, say, writing it for a novel point of view, you want to be able to go, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah. We've said that before, that it has to make sense. I mean, I keep coming back to this. It has to make sense for you as a writer. It has to make sense for someone reading it going, yeah, I know what's going on this page. I know where the characters are on the space. I know what they're doing. I know why they're doing it. And I know how they're doing it, or I know how things are happening. And it follows. Everything needs to follow.
Yeah.
What has come before and where it's going. So completely agree. It always has to be sensible.
Yeah. It's like and there is, it becomes to a simplified form. It's as a simple example, as in you have a wizard who can suddenly cast a fireball at a certain level, but at no point before had they ever cast anything fire related.
Yeah.
And really, if they were building towards that in a Ars Magica Flambeau kind of way, or if there was a linking to it, but the system goes, we can't give this character too much capability, because as soon as you introduce magic, it's like, what's the fighter going to do when druids always had, druids had always limited magic in the past. Bards the same, as in there was this particular type that were a bit mostly swashbucklers.
Yeah.
But now there has to be a balancing of, we have to give everyone enough capacity, rather than wheeling back, rather than putting requirements on, say, on the wizards. You're giving everyone's magic to the point that every class has now
opened the floodgates.
Yeah. There's another game called, I think it's from Eden Studios, called Witchcraft, and in it you have wizard characters. You have, so I think it's full on adepts, half adepts, and mundanes. I think those are the three main character types. And you have adepts can be full magic users, half adepts can be partial ones. You also can be a vampire type, Bastet, that sort of thing.
I'd definitely be a mundane. Yeah.
But you would, that's the thing. So mundanes have the highest number of merits as a balancing act. And there is a particular merit called Heart to Kill. And this magnifies the amount of hit points that character has. And I remember I built up a few characters, because one thing I would occasionally do from an inspiration point of view is I'll build characters for as character sheets for my characters.
Yeah.
Sometimes you mentioned asked before how many languages have I developed. I've developed my own game system, and there's actually I have my own thing called Grimoire Magica, which is a system. I systemize the parts of a character so that I can show on so this person has this level of ability, or this level of magical knowledge, or this level of street awareness, or this level of fighting ability. The Heart to Kill merit is fantastic. Like I would have no problem in as a really good, really well written RPGs. Makes it very hard for me to pick a character class.
Yes.
Like, I could play this Rosicrucian who there are these faithful guys who you have this level of power. Oh, that's great. Oh, I could play this Bastet. Oh, that'd be great. And they have this transform power and this. Oh, that'd be great. And
it's like it all seems fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could play Joe. I could play Joe, and he's fucking tough.
Yeah.
And you immediately have a situation where you're in your head, you're crafting these characters, whereas like Joe, maybe look at say Stargate. You have your four main characters in Stargate, and Teal'c simply is a hard ass who he has his own character, but doesn't from a character type point of view. He is a hard warrior who rarely takes damage, or he just shrugs it off. And then you have your two kind of smart types, and you have your comic relief. So you even from that kind of structure.
Are you suggesting MacGyver is comic relief?
I am. Yes. How scurrilous of me.
He's MacGyver.
He was MacGyver.
He'll always be MacGyver.
Yeah, sure.
Richard Dean Anderson is always MacGyver.
True enough. The point of I'm partly I wanted to mention this because being inspired from things I hate.
Yeah.
It should be also. I should point to the inspired things that I really I love. That there's one project that I want to start. Like you mentioned, you started off with Dungeons and Dragons. The first game system I was ever involved with at age 11 was Mega Traveler. I was basically just a audience member in a game. It was my brother's group of friends, and I just basically sat there with a character in front of me, and I did nothing. And just listened, and I was just hooked from that moment on. From there, Shadowrun, Vampire, yes, into Dungeons and Dragons for a bit, but not massively. And then
I see. For me, there's no other than Dungeons and Dragons. It was always my first love and my longest love in terms of TTRPGs. Is
and the thing, and that's grand. I don't want it to denigrate, but I will because I fucking hate that thing. It's that what I wanted to say, the Mega Traveler game system. So how you develop a character is you essentially go through, they cycle through education and say military training essentially.
Yeah.
So you could start off as a diplomat, and then you try to move up the ranks, or say a civil servant, and you try to move up the ranks, but you are aging. You start off as an 18-year-old, and basically you're rolling against tables.
Okay.
And you just roll against, and if you succeed, great, you get a bonus for that year. If you fit
civil service, the TTRPG.
No, but this is. But
I'll work at the Department of Travel right now, or Transport.
No, but it is a growth into a kind of potentially being an ambassador or being a governor, or there's elements that you become.
Yeah,
I think it's becoming a prince. There's a noble class. And at one point just getting your own ship. Just your one of the bonuses is certainly you have a yacht that doesn't have much in the way of hyperspace capability, but can dock easily and be taken by elsewhere.
Yeah.
So suddenly you have a Firefly Inara character But things you're getting older. So you start off at 18, and imagine this as a kid. You're rolling this, and you're suddenly going into your 30s, into your 40s, and
you're like, oh no,
fuck. And then
I'm aging before my time.
And then you have your agonatics, which is they can get drugs to nullify the effects. So essentially, you could keep on going until and there is possibility that you die during character creation.
Sure.
But you end up with a group of characters who tend to be on the older side and have a bunch of abilities, weapons, and they have sample weapons, a bunch of money, maybe a drug addiction or two, or
why not, for flavor,
that they have some sort of history, that has been created by these tables. Then you can go in and then you're going to fill in the blanks. So in a similar way to the ABC idea of even just on a single character, this gives you a structure that into which, so I know they spent these 3 semesters on doing diplomatic work.
Yeah.
Okay. Or say if you fail, you can drift. You hijack starships for a time. If you're a doctor, like, you can follow this kind of Stephen Franklin approach from BAP 5, and you can hijack starships and trade your knowledge,
your medical skills,
for passage. Suddenly you have an opportunity to create contacts. You have an opportunity to have adventures. You have an opportunity to this. You actually were involved in finding you weren't there yourself, but the team that went into the mine that found the alien artifact in the basement of some place in Mars, or is it in a crypt in Mars, or is it in a tunnel in Mars? You weren't there for that, but you were the one people who when they shipped the people off Mars, you were one of the medical staff.
Okay,
so you saw this effect. So then the episode starts, or the story starts. So suddenly you have this hook for that character is already waiting as part of their history. You build out this sort of stuff. So this is from
so you can kind of template your characters. Like, if you can mass produce multiple variations of many different type of characters using the game system.
Yeah, and indeed, the action of using the random roll forces you out of your own, I was supposed to say your own bigotries, but your own limitations. As in, so you say, for example, you're starting in and you love Stargate, and it's like, okay, I want to have 4 characters like this. Then you go through this rolling process. Okay, I want someone who is a scientist, someone who is an academic, someone who is a military, and someone who is a alien. Those are your options. By going through this random roll system, you produce new characters, and indeed you can fudge it. You can go, well, I want this person.
Nudge it a little.
Yeah. There's no harm in that. You can allow the process to happen naturally, and then you can go, because ultimately, again, no one's going to know you're doing this in the background, but you're using this gaming system to facilitate the story. And this is one thing that I think I got a copy of a Cthulhu setting for it, which is set in the solar system. So it's an expanse range of world building. So you're only going to the Kuiper Belt, and that's it, sort of thing. But then you build your characters, and it is. I think I'm looking forward to this thing. I'm of all the stuff that I'm working on at the moment, I'm kind of, this is the reward almost that I'm going to give myself in a year or 2 time, because this is how long my it takes story arcs to finish in my head. That this will be a case of, maybe it'll be kind of 1st of January next year where I go, flex the fingers. Now I get to
make new characters.
Exactly. The idea,
see what they do.
Because we talked before about the idea of the world building being such the fun part of it. And these books, they are guides to it. They will present facts to you. They will present something, but then you can just fucking disagree with them. Like one of the books for one of the Trinity books, which was from Onyx Path, in it's set in the near future, and it basically describes Ireland as being as authoritarian Brexit.
Okay.
And I was so close at being one of the Kickstarters. I was so close to kind of email them going, yeah, that's not us. But given that also we have anti-immigration, morons in this country as well. So we don't have the level of idiocy of the Farages and the Suella Bravermans in this country. We do have bad actors, absolutely. Who knows in 50 years that Ireland won't turn into the thing. Like, we could talk about other countries which are perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, the potential for disaster is ever present.
Yes. So
no matter where we are or what we're doing. Yeah, I think that'd be safe enough to say that there's always that kind of threat or
of potentiality. But if you don't want that as part of your thing, then but ignore it. But then around that, they're talking about how certain psychics came into power, or certain, if you have suddenly introducing the ability to teleport on a mass scale, not just personal, but opening up a portal. Yeah, and what's that mean for the oil industry? If you suddenly have 2,000 people across the world who can create portals, how's that impact? Well, there's more than 2,000 cities out there. So how does that work?
Yeah.
So is it a thing that are you going to be pushing it to only military matters? Are you only the rich? What if that 20 is actually 20,000? How does that change?
Yeah.
So suddenly, and was that it goes from 200 to 2,000 to 20,000? What if
it's like the introduction of any kind of revolutionary piece of technology.
Yeah.
It's like, it's going to change how everybody sees the world, how everybody interacts with the world. It's going to change business, world economy, society.
But I think that
if it's significant enough,
where it, both in good writing and good RP writing, is that you have to ask those questions.
Yeah.
Even if it's uncomfortable. I think we mentioned, and actually, there'll be plenty of times when we're referencing back to things we've talked about before, that what if the writer doesn't think of a political issue, or what if they introduce the idea of an alien race has also arrived at the same time? Yeah. So what does that matter about space travel?
Yeah.
If you can travel from one side of the planet to the other, why can't you travel from here to the moon, here to Mars? What's that mean for lunar colonization? When that's the problem with, say, lunar or Mars colonization is material
terraforming, or
well, not necessarily terraforming, but materials. How do you get materials and staff there? Yeah. The amount of to get a pod there costs billions, but you can just open up a portal and throw everything through.
Yeah.
Suddenly you have this massive change.
Yeah. So in to use another analogy, it's like if you're watching any movie where there's medieval armies fighting each other.
Sure.
You always see the armies on the march. You always see soldiers on the march.
Right.
You never see the camp followers.
Yes.
You never see the bakers.
Yes. The washerwomen.
The blacksmiths.
Yep.
The washerwomen. You never see them in that long, they have this image, or maybe it's from the Eagle or something, where the Roman army, it's in this long line as it's marching.
Yeah.
And it's just soldiers. It's like, okay, well, maybe the Romans had, it was soldiers that did everything.
Oh, no.
But that's not the case.
That isn't the case. I remember I heard it was the one of the Persian Wars. I think it was Alexander the Great, but there was a historian on some BBC program talking about how there was references made to exchanging back the washerwomen, that that prisoner exchange was an important thing after a battle, but specifically mentioning washerwomen, that it was such an important thing, because you imagine, yes, an army marched on stomach, but also cleanliness, even though this was a time before they identified germ theory, there was still a case of, whether it be we want to look the best, as the Spartans would doll themselves up before battle, covering themselves in oil and whatnot, that these washerwomen were traded back to ensure that they were safe. They were so important to the mix. Yeah. I think it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, but I think there's which is what I was happening to look at here, in a similar way that a writer needs to consider the details and the logistics.
Yes.
Of everything. There's the popular architectural legend. Have you heard that? I think it's supposed to relate to, I think it's the Northwestern University Library, where they brought in this renowned architect to design the new library for the university, and he did an amazing job. Spectacular. The thing was built. It looked beautiful. Except after a while, it started sinking.
No, I didn't know.
It started like this beautiful, brand new, gorgeous library started sinking into the ground. And what the architect had failed to consider, this is like an architectural legend,
Right.
But what he had failed to consider in its design was the weight of the books.
Really?
Yeah. So he did everything perfectly, except just this didn't consider a fine detail that needs to be included, as in the weight of all the books on all the shelves started causing the entire library to sink.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think, isn't that the same with, or sorry, and this may be a apocryphal tale, same in that it may be apocryphal, that the National Basketball Arena in Tala can't hold international basketball games.
Okay.
Because
surprise me.
Because of the nature of the roof.
Okay.
The roof, which is, it's nicely decorative.
Yeah.
It rises into peaks.
It's unusual, yeah.
But in order to rise that into peaks, they have to have a structure below it.
Mm-hmm.
And that structure means that a ball cannot go, it basically will impede the path of the ball up to a certain point.
Yeah.
So essentially it is, I think
it's not tall enough.
Not tall enough. And it's like what the
National Basketball Arena is not tall enough
to
play basketball.
Yeah. So it is. So they can do demonstration games, but that's it. And it's like, you had one job. It's very much the trope of you had one job to do. Identify the thing.
But that's it. You need, in order to make it a believable story.
Yeah.
You might draw inspiration from anywhere, as we were saying, but you still need those nuts and bolts in at the end to kind of give it that sense of realism. Like, you need your camp followers for the army. You need to consider the weight of the books. It doesn't have to be, again, as the inspiration doesn't. These can be scaffolding elements. These can be world building elements that you reference but never look back at again. That it can be simply as a line between two. The general going, did we do the exchange of prisoners? Yes, we got. Did we do the exchange? And then that's him repeating the same question. Did we? Yes, she's back. It's okay. Yeah. And then that's referring to the washerwoman who you'll see later on going, it's like, how was your time with the enemy? They were fine. They were fine. And you can see this almost like, motherly, maternal action of this general who wants to keep people essentially in his household and even servants safe. Yeah. That can be used as a descriptor for that character. Yeah. That even those small things, you are. What a kind-hearted general he is.
Oh yes, while sending the next day he decimates one of his legions, or gets them to decimate themselves. Yeah. That there is that you are allowing the history to be there without it being overbearing, because you don't want a situation like, say, because when you're mentioning the idea of the troops marching, the one scene that popped into my head was the scene in Last of the Mohicans.
Okay.
Just before the assault happens, which apparently happened in real life, and that they didn't want to attack back because they didn't want to provoke the natives, the First Nation folk. But it's been dramatized up. But that was a troop of redcoats leading a troop of women, children, people, and militiamen, and
non-combatants.
Exactly, non-combatants. Perfect. So having the awareness should actually release the question. So having all this inspiration, that's essentially you as part of your world building. You now have all these points of inspiration, points of fact. We are then now building fantasy.
Thank you for listening to Fictional Problems, in association with Speculative Fiction Ireland. On our next episode, we go back to TTRPGs and we have a brief discussion about representation and interaction with magic systems in fiction. Join us.